So law enforcement agents finally caught the Long Island serial killer who was allegedly responsible for the Gilgo murders. He goes by the name Rex Heuermann, and he has been living a double life, as most serial killers do, with a wife, a daughter, even a stepson. He had his own architecture firm, and he helped clients navigate New York City building codes and the Department of Building. He was even married twice. Once to Elizabeth Ryan, and then he divorced and married Asa Ellerup, who was by his side when he was being arraigned last week. Now, the facts of this case are comprehensive and detailed. The initial discovery of the serial killer took place back in December of 2010 when police were searching for a missing woman by the name of Shannon Gilbert, who was last seen in and around the Gilgo Beach area. During the search, police also discovered the remains of several other individuals in a nearby marshy area. As the investigation progressed, additional remains of individuals were found, and it became apparent that a serial killer may be responsible for the murders. In total, the bodies of 10 individuals, which includes 8 women, 1 man, and a baby, a toddler, were discovered. The victims were mostly associated with sex work and had been missing for varying lengths of time. Now, the case became known as the Long Island serial killer case, or the Gilgo Beach killer case, and despite extensive investigation involving multiple law enforcement agencies, the identity of the killer remained unknown for 15 years until the police arrested Rex Heuermann. The Gilgo Beach murder case has highlighted the issues such as vulnerability of sex workers, the challenges of investigating serial crimes, and the importance of collaborative efforts among law enforcement agencies. Before I get into the details of this case, this is the legal code, and on this channel we discuss a wide range of legal topics, whether it's public policies, different laws coming down the pike, things affecting Americans, healthcare, as it relates to the legal side of healthcare, not the medical side, but the legal side, the policy side. We discuss it here. I hope that this channel is a hub so that you can get firsthand information from an attorney that's unbiased, that just presents the facts. So if you like that sort of thing, please don't forget to like and subscribe and share with anyone else that would find value. Also, I have a medical tourism trip set up that is scheduled for October of 2023. You can check the website for the exact date. So if you're one of the many millions of Americans that do not have substantial health care, or you're without health care, and your health as well as your dental care has been in the decline, then I invite you to consider coming to Colombia in order to see doctors or dentists, get diagnostics exam at a fraction of what it would cost you to get all of that done in the United States, as well as it's more expeditious. You can get all of your diagnostics done in about 2 days, whereas in the United States I've heard reports of people not being able to schedule an MRI for up to 3 months. So if you're one of the many Americans that you need to see a doctor, you need to see a dentist, and I really want you to consider this trip. It's a flat fee, which includes your diagnostics, which is any blood work, MRIs, screenings that you need to do in order to prep you for the doctor, as well as your 2 weeks accommodations, your 2 meals a day, your transportation. So all you would have to come out of pocket to pay for is your airfare and whatever extra spending money. So it's a really economical trip because I wanted it to be affordable for Americans, because the whole thing about health insurance and healthcare in the United States is that it's unaffordable. Many people neglect their health because they just simply can't afford it. So I really wanted this trip to be as comprehensive and economical and financially accessible for as many people as possible. With that being said, Colombia is ranked number 22 in the world when it comes to healthcare. So if you're concerned whether or not Colombia even has adequate healthcare, it does. It outranks the United States and it outranks Canada. So it's well renowned. Most of the doctors have been educated in Europe and educated in the United States and returned to Colombia to practice medicine. And so it's well renowned around the world as a medical destination because of the comprehensive healthcare that it offers at the cost. So I really want you to consider this trip. If you have any questions, there's an email email provided. You can reach out to my team and we'll follow up with you. So again, it's October 2023. Think about it. Inform some friends about it if they're interested, even in just coming to Colombia just to see the culture and to get a vacation. Then you could do that too, or scouting trip. Many people are scouting out retirement places. So this is also an opportunity if you're considering relocating outside the United States. This is also an opportunity for you to see Colombia for 2 weeks. You get the feel of the place, get a feel of the infrastructure and whether or not you would like living there. So the details are in the description box. Now let's get back to the Gilgo murders, how the police cracked this code, how this serial killer had a family and was able to hide within plain sight. Shannon Gilbert was one of the first victims, 24-year-old woman who was from New Jersey who went missing in 2010. Her disappearance initially led to the discovery of other victims. Shannon made a call at about 4:51 a.m. to the police after fleeing from a client's home. She told the 911 operator someone was after her, trying to kill her. That was the last time anyone heard from Shannon. Now, while searching for Shannon, police found the remains of other victims, and this is what began the Gilgo murder mystery. Melissa Barthelemy, another 24-year-old from the Bronx, she was last seen alive in her basement apartment around July 12, 2009. Barthelemy's mother had not heard from her, been able to contact her for a few days, so she reported her missing to the police department on July 18th. 2009. The investigators showed that Barthelemy's cell phone pinged to Manhattan, Freeport, Massapequa, and Lindenhurst. After Barthelemy's disappearance, her younger sister started receiving a string of taunting phone calls from someone using the victim's phone. These calls were believed to have come from the killer and made from an area around Penn Station in New York. On December 11, 2010, Barthelemy's skeletal remains were found on the north side of the Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach during the search for Shannon Gilbert. Although she was the first victim found, she is believed to be the second victim of the Gilgo Four to be killed. Another young woman, Maureen Brainward Barnes, was 25 years old, living in Norwich, Connecticut. She was missing after taking an Amtrak train from New London, Connecticut to Grand Central Terminal in Manhattan on July 6, 2007. At the time, she was also working as a prostitute. Amber Costello, 27 years old, was working as a sex worker as well, was suffering with a heroin addiction, and who lived in West Babylon, New York, at her home with a woman and 2 men. When Costello would meet clients at her house, the 2 male roommates would often run a scam. Once a client had paid for the services, but before any intimacy occurred, they would confront the client, saying Costello was their girlfriend, and the man would flee out of fear. Costello was last seen leaving her home on September 2nd, 2010 to meet a client. Costello did not have her cell phone on her at the time, and she was never reported missing. All women were sex workers and became known as the Gilgo Beach Four, and the police believed the women were killed by the same killer when the bodies were discovered. Now, fast forward to January 2022, police made a renewed effort to investigate the murders. A witness who witnessed the disappearance of Amber Costello identified a Chevrolet Avalanche as a vehicle that may have been operated by the killer in or around the area where this occurred. The police also realized a black Avalanche registered to Rex at the time of Amber's murder. Police decided from there to take a closer look at Rex and use 300 subpoenas, search warrants, and legal processes to obtain evidence. Investigators say they narrowed the cell tower records for thousands of possible individuals down to hundreds, then to a handful of people, and they focused on residents who matched a physical description provided by the witness who had seen the killer with the Chevy Avalanche. So as they narrowed down the search to the individuals, they perhaps collected DNA from the other people that they were possibly tracking, because a key break in the case came when investigators recovered Heuermann's DNA from pizza crust in a crumbled box that he discarded in a Manhattan trash in January. So the initial examination of Megan Waterman, another victim's skeletal remains, turned up a male hair from the bottom of the burlap. The killer used burlap to wrap the body. Analysis of the DNA found on the victim and the pizza showed that the samples match. So I'm led to believe, as the police were narrowing down the possible suspects, they were collecting DNA from the individuals because they had the DNA from one of the victims. So they were, in a clandestine way, collecting DNA samples as best that they could from the narrowed list of potential killers. As the police were able to narrow down the potential killers by cell phone records, locations, and then the DNA. The DNA was really the way for the police to crack this case. Additionally, hair believed to be Heuermann's wife was also found on nearly 3 of the victims, according to the bail application. The DNA was collected from bottles inside a garbage can outside the Heuermann home. The hairs were found in 2010 and had degraded, and DNA testing at the time yielded no results. But recent mitochondria DNA testing allowed investigators to make the connection. The case started with the search of a missing woman in 2010, leading to the discovery of multiple sets of human remains at Gilgo Beach. And by the time the remains of the missing woman, Shannon Gilbert, were found 1 year later, at least 10 sets of human remains had been recovered across the 2 Long Island counties, Nassau and Suffolk County. This case was sort of abandoned before, but they rediscovered something that was initially in the evidence, the witness report of the Chevrolet Avalanche. In March 2022, the investigators found a first-generation Chevrolet Avalanche, the same type of truck a witness believed to have been driven by Costello's killer, registered to Heuermann at the time. This is how the police were able to connect Rex to the murders. Rex lived in Massapequa Park, and the victims' bodies were found around this area. Burner cell phones used were pinged to locations in Massapequa Park as well as Midtown, near Rex's Midtown office. One victim's sister was contacted with the burner phone, taunting that he was the killer. A cell phone used by Rex was used in some of the same areas as the burner phones and the same travel patterns as the burner phones. Rex was connected to burner phones because he accessed email accounts that were connected to the phone. Again, police were able to subpoena these records from the phone companies. Rex was also captured on video at the cell phone store in Manhattan buying additional minutes for phones, made internet searches of serial killers. For example, he was sort of obsessed with being caught, so he would search, why can't the police trace the Gilgo Beach murders, or Google unsolved serial killer cases. And so between March 2022 and June 2023, the same account conducted more than 200 searches of serial killers about the Gilgo Beach murder and the task force. So this man was obsessed with being caught. He would continuously search about the status of the investigation. Also, hair from his wife was found on 3 of the victims. The police don't believe that she was involved. They believe that Rex transferred her hair onto the victims, and she was out of town when all of the murders happened. Now, Rex's defense is that there was no witnesses, no videos. Any person can travel between Massapequa Park and Midtown. That's not evidence of anything. And that the women had a hazardous occupation. What they came in contact with questionable and potentially dangerous clients. And any man could have done this, not him. And as of this video, he maintains his innocence. People who know Rex or had any interaction with him described him as unsettling. They felt unsettled and that he was not approachable and even menacing at times. He would chop wood in front of his house in order to menace people walking by. And he was even forced to leave Whole Foods store because he took food reserved for children. So he was a not approachable or kind man. Many people did not have anything kind to say about his personality, but they did say he was an exceptional architect. Very detail-oriented, professional, obsessed with rules, building codes, but even miserly, which is why his house was in disrepair. He had this obsessive attention to detail, compulsive, and so which allowed him to go undetected for so many years. But he got obsessed with getting caught, which is why the obscene amount of internet searches about serial killers. What's interesting about Rex is that he also had a family. So you may be curious how he managed to have a family and this go undetected for his family. Now, being a psychopath is not a full-time job. It's more like a compulsivity or craving. And for a psychopath to murder, he requires a trigger or certain conditions. And then he kills based on trying to replicate previous, mostly his first murder. So he could feel the same way he felt when he committed the first, or adrenaline rush. So they get the trigger, but they're living a normal life until the trigger comes, and they're able to compartmentalize these murders and even evade suspicion, so they appear normal to everyone else. Their wives are then genuinely shocked at who they are, that they're sleeping next to a cold-blooded killer. The wife and the family also serve a purpose, to serve his needs and to provide unwitting cover for his action. He may not care for the wife and the family in a traditional sense, but he knows how society views marriage and how to mimic the behavior to blend in. The marriage provides a perfect cover for him. As a male alone, he would stand out more. As a married man, there's a sense of normalcy. So why serial killers marry? It's social currency, but the motivations behind why they marry can vary. And it's important to know that not all serial killers are married or have been married or have families. However, there are a few factors that contribute to why they marry and choose to enter marital relationships. The facade of normalcy, as I mentioned, serial killers often go to great lengths to appear normal and to blend into society, so they mimic appropriate social behavior. Getting married, having a family can create a facade of stability, normalcy, which may help them avoid suspicion and maintain a cover for their criminal activities. Also, social acceptance and validation. Marriage is generally considered a socially acceptable and valued institution. Some serial killers may seek validation and acceptance through marriage, wanting to fulfill societal expectations or gain a sense of belonging. This can help them mask also their dark urges and appear as a regular member of society. It also, in some cases, gives them access to victims. They may use their family's trust and proximity to exploit and harm individuals within the family without arousing suspicion. This proximity can make it easier for them to gain access to vulnerable targets, such as their own spouses and children. Also, it's always about power and control with serial killers. Marriage allows them to exert dominance and control over their spouse and family members, which can be appealing to individuals with sadistic tendencies or a compulsive need to control. But it's important to emphasize that the decision to get married is influenced by a multitude of individual factors, and not all serial killers have families. In Rex's case, his wife was not the profile of the woman he killed. She met a different set of social needs, which is why he kept her alive. It would be more the type of woman he was sexually stimulated by that he was killing, his fantasy, and then he goes home to his ordinary life. I should state that I don't think it's as planned out as it sounds, but more something of the unconscious. They unwittingly choose that which serves their needs best, and they need to be able to hide their actions and their compulsivity, and a family is a perfect masquerade for that, to neutralize that dark side and help them hide in plain sight. So there are multiple desires getting met. The family fulfills the normalcy that they need, and the killing fulfills the psychotic portion, the compulsivity. The lives of serial killers, all we know is based on the data. The clandestine nature of serial killers makes it difficult to have an exact percentage of how many of them have families. We only get a glimpse into who they are when they're caught. And so obtaining accurate data on a percentage of serial killers who were caught while having families is challenging due to the secretive nature of their crimes, the lack of transparency in them as an individual, and the lack of comprehensive studies specifically addressing this aspect. Serial killers often go to great lengths to hide their criminal activities, including concealing their personal lives even from their families. However, it's not uncommon for some serial killers to be caught while maintaining families. In some cases, their family members may have played a role in their eventual capture, either by reporting suspicious behavior or by becoming victims themselves. So this is where we are. As the investigation goes on, we'll learn more about the killings, and we'll learn more about Rex, and provide, of course, more information for us, the public, into serial killers. How many of them are hiding in plain sight, unbeknownst to us, that appear normal? I mean, this guy fit the textbook of normalcy, being an architect, an illustrious career, an office in Midtown Manhattan, and that's nothing to sneeze at. But then he had this dark side. He was obsessed with the fantasy of sex workers, sought them out, and eventually became obsessed with getting caught. So that's where we are. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I've always been fascinated in serial killers, how they manage to hide in plain sight, unbeknownst to many of us. And you wonder if you've ever rubbed shoulders with one and you didn't know it. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section, and I will see you next time. Bye.